Oh, hey, good afternoon. As I always say in the beginning, broadcasting live, you got your favorite blockhead once again coming back to Dallas on air, and I don't need this anymore. Coming from the street, don't need my mask, I'm in the studio. It is good once again to be back on Dallas on air, and if you are not familiar with who this young man is that's in the air right now, this young man, Zach Sanders from South Carolina, has some of the best jazz saxophonist music you are ever going to hear. I'm so thankful for Miss Cat for putting up the logos, but I'm especially thankful for this young man getting the credit that he deserves. This hit, Galaxy, came out in March, and it has been taking Apple Music and Spotify by storm. So if you haven't been checking out his music, you can hear him now. So if you want to go check out Galaxy by Zach Sanders Music, this is the guy to go look for. Look him up. Great music, fantastic aura that he gives out. And guys, as we welcome everybody into the studio, you'll notice I have my cup of coffee, but I also have another particular guest we're going to introduce in just a second as I take my iconic swig there. What I would like to bring up at this point is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I want to talk to you now about my dear friend, Mr. Daniel Hurd of Ride with Dan USA. Those who've been following my podcast have been hearing him earlier in the pre-rolls when I talk about him. But guys, every 12 minutes, a person commits suicide. And every 25, in between that time, 25 are going to attempt suicide. This man who served on my ship, the USS Pearl Harbor, proud brother of mine, proud shipmate, is riding his bicycle across America, not only to raise awareness for bicycling, but to break the stigma for suicide. So guys, I'm asking you to consider going to the website, checking out all of the resources, go to donate to him. You got to understand that he just finished up a bicycle camper. He is making his way to Yellowstone National Park as we speak. But I will tell you that even though he has done well and all of his projects are completed, he's going to need food money for along the road. So if you want to donate to PayPal or Venmo or Cash App, if any of these are on your heart, I wholeheartedly support the One Pedal at a Time movement, and I wholeheartedly support Ride with Dan USA. This one tugs at my heart every time. I'm a better person because of Daniel Hurd's influence and him being a part of my life. So make sure you go back and check those links. We will have this up on YouTube where the links are available if you want to learn more about his story. And as we welcome, I'll tell you, I don't want to keep some of y'all in suspense too long because you're going, why am I watching Your Favorite Blockhead on this channel? Well, there's a reason. There happens to be a particular guest that's about to join me soon. He's actually drinking a Dr. Pepper from a YFB koozie. Oh, he's walking down the ramp now. Look at this. No way. Yes, yes, yes. Russell Brown of Loud and Opinionated. The Loud and Opinionated with the Russ Hour has begun on the YFB Blockhead Hour. Russ, it is good to see you, my friend.
I am happy to be here. It's been about 17 attempts to try to even get this done.
At least. With all the epidemics coming out, and also one of them falls on yours truly when I ended up being out of commission. The little redhead girl's not going to like me for mentioning this, but she felt this tall where she knocked my pelvis out of alignment. But then with a little bit of physical therapy, we finally got into the studio, and we're going to have a little bit of fun today. So Russ, as we start the show, let me just ask you a couple of things, or at least look over my little bullet points that I attempted to have before we start. I have to pick at you. The last time that you did a live, Miss Jessica, it's kind of like my little redheaded girl. She is not afraid to not point out your idiosyncrasies, but to tease you where she can. She put up this video of you coming out of the dentist. Do you recall this? And this guy comes out, and ever since then, I'm always tempted to go get a smoothie. So, can you walk us through just that video of Miss Jessica being a little bit of a pain to you?
Well, no, I mean, I agreed to it. I had some extensive dental work done, and
yes, that's true.
Lots of gas and some very highly.
You are referring to laughing gas, if I assume, right?
Yeah,
just for your listeners.
And then some very highly good drugs to numb all the pain, and believe me, I was on another cloud that day. There was that was man. I don't remember a lot of that, to be honest with you.
But Miss Jessica did capture some of the high points.
That was, man. If you've ever had dental surgery, or your wisdom teeth taken out, you see those videos. That was, I had a wisdom tooth pulled too as well.
That's right. Yeah.
That was my wisdom tooth video. That was my. Some of the ones you've seen are pretty embarrassing, but that one wasn't that bad.
And it caused YFB to want to take a few more trips to Smoothie King just from that. But, fun times, man. In other words, you got yourself a gem, man. Miss Jessica is a wonderful part of the Loud and Opinionated movement, man, part of your life and part of mine as well. Actually, I got to know her pretty well when you started doing those meetups at Mansfield when we do the trivia nights. I think I kind of only held my own so much. I think 3 out of 5, just like my MMA predictions, I was on point with some of those with there. But, guys, I got to keep building him up at this point. This man right here has been destined to be on platforms like this. Let me tell you why. I don't know if you remember, but back in 4th grade, when you and I were in the same classroom, there were opportunities where people could go and promote a book that they were reading. Well, Hank the Cowdog was a huge trend during that time.
I remember that. I remember Hank the Cowdog.
Right. You came forward on the intercom. You talked about how this is the book you're reading. Here's a little bit of a synopsis. But somewhere in there, you threw in a catchphrase. You said, just like Ruffles or just like Pringles, I bet you can't read just one. And
I don't remember that. I don't recall the 4th grade that much.
That would be my auditory memory.
But
over time.
I don't think I put it past me. To be honest with you, I don't put it past me. And those were great books. They still are. I think the author just recently passed away, though.
I think you're right. I mean, it's just kind of one of those, this is to show you, at least laying the groundwork, that this man has been destined to join the podcasting game. I don't want to call it game, but he's part of the journey now at this point, because you are now an official part of the YFB network. You got to love that. So, and as I mentioned that, you also are using a lot of interviews, but also you've been kind of experimenting with the music that you have. I'm anticipating that one day you're going to come on and all of a sudden I'm going to hear like ska music, whether it's big, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones or Real Big Fish. I remember that was a big thing that you listened to when we were in high school. But you've experimented with a lot. Have you set on a intro music at this point as you do your show? Or?
Still kind of working with it. I'm actually working with my last guest, Mr. Josh Birch Music. We're kicking around some things. He's trying to come up with something for an intro music, but yeah, I still listen to the ska music. I listen to that pretty much once a week, twice a week, sometimes all day long at work.
Yeah, you're pretty diverse. I mean, we start off with jazz music. Now we're getting into the ska core era. Yeah. We could start talking about anybody.
But music in general. I mean, there's just so much. For me, music is totally different than the meaning for me is totally different than what it is for some people. I don't listen. Yeah, the words are good, some of them, but a lot of the times I listen to the beat, the rhythm, the sound, the way a song makes you feel.
Sure.
And I just discussed a little bit of that with Josh, my last guest.
Right.
There's a lot of opportunities for songs to, there's a song that'll make you cry. There's a song that'll make you laugh. There's a song that'll make you want to fight somebody. There's a song that'll make you want to drink a cold beer.
Yeah, there's a song that YFB could instigate known as Piano Man. Apparently, you can bust out with this one out of nowhere, too.
Yeah.
Do we want to go down that road?
That's a go-to sing-along right there.
Exactly. And, another thing, just, again, I don't want to pull too much off of where we are in music, but there is something that is just really rubbing me the wrong way. And I'm talking to you, Globe Life Park and the Texas Rangers. Somehow, this man has not gotten a royalty check yet for you being on an official Texas Rangers commercial doing your little dance. So, people that have listened to my show, you walked them through that. But for those who don't know, can you walk us through how you ended up being on the Titantron out there at Globe Life Park?
That video happened probably, I'm not kidding you, maybe 8 years ago. Well, no, not 8 years ago.
Well,
probably, I'd say about 5.
It's been on repeat, yes.
5 or 6 years ago. Well, but the original video was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and then they just put it in a commercial last year or the year before. So I guess they keep that stuff. But I went to a game, and I was going to the restroom or the concession stand or something like that, and they were playing a song, and the camera guy was walking towards me, so I did a little dance.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I look up, and I'm on the screen.
That's your claim to fame right there.
I was like, oh, God, I'm on the screen. And what was funny is that entire season, so that was probably I'm going to say it was about 2016 or 2015. That entire season, I would get phone calls from people. Like, hey, are you at the game? Or I would get text messages. Hey, are you at the game? Where are you sitting? And I'm like, I'm at home watching this on TV. So they would replay it in the stadium. And then out of nowhere last year, a buddy of mine sends me a text message and he goes, hey, you know you're in a Rangers commercial? And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, you're in a Rangers commercial. And I was like, there's no way. And so I was like, next
sure
time.
Enough.
And so I put it out on Facebook and I said, hey, if anybody sees this, would y'all record it with your phone so I can see this? Sure enough, somebody sends it to me, and I was like, holy crap. And so I made a big joke about it okay, Texas Rangers, where's my royalty checks? Because you're using me in your
Exactly, because the party starts here. Yeah. That is ingrained deep in my psyche at this point. But it's just
crazy.
But again, they pulled you out of the archives out of nowhere, and somehow we've got Loud and Opinionated with Russ that began at Ranger Stadium, but now you are embracing so many other realms that, there's so many layers if we start pulling back, and that is where really your podcast journey begins. I've got to get a cheers for you on this one, man. Just as of now, we've got, Loud and Opinionated with Russ is part of the new YFB network, and we are launching you off into whatever it would be in the podcasting world. I don't know if there's a buzzword for that.
It's Dr. Pepper.
There you go. It's Dr. Pepper. But in the meantime, as we start this, you've made it to episode 15. Yes, you had Josh Birch on. You've had a couple of times with me and also Red, JG, Justin Gilly. But can you just kind of walk people through your journey? They're finding out about, I've been doing this for a while just because I really wanted to start a podcast. But really, what inspired you to get in there and get moving with this, and what direction you see the podcast going at this point?
The inspiration was I always I worked in radio for a little bit. I worked for 106.9 The Ranch.
Oh, really?
Just briefly, I worked in their studio as a board op.
Okay,
doing doing their football games, doing other things for live broadcast, remote broadcast.
Okay.
And so I would do that, and I've always had like a passion for radio.
Sure.
But you hear any radio personality talk about it, radio doesn't really pay.
Starting to notice that, yeah.
And so it was one of those things of, I have a lot of opinions. I have a lot of things I like to talk about. And I said, what the heck? Why not? And people had reached out to me before and said, hey, why don't you do a podcast? I was like, well, kind of never thought about it.
Right.
I had listened to yours, and it was kind of one of those things. Hey, why not?
Right.
It's taken some time to get things right. I had a pretty rough logo, and now I've got a nice logo.
Oh yeah, the microphone with the fire on the end.
Yeah.
I still thought that was even though it was primitive.
Yeah.
It was a good starting point.
But it's like you said. I'm at 15, and I hope to get to 115.
There you
or
go.
more. And so that's the journey has begun.
There you go, and that's the thing about it is that we've gotten you past what people would call pod fading. That was for those that are part of the YFB network. There's actually 5 podcasts total, and you're one of them. We've got Ray and JG. We've got Casually Kicking It. We've got The Burnout with Chris Barnett. He's almost to number 10. Keep going, Chris. And we've also got The Paddler's Playbook. And now all of these guys kind of are involved in some way, but they have a different story. But we are just, a community where we're building each other up. So I love that, you have this platform, and I'm like, well, I knew that radio probably wouldn't be a good platform for me as well. I kind of missed the train on that one. But when podcasting became a real thing, and then I started going, hey, I can do this. And then knowing that I don't want to call you a protege, but knowing that there are others that I can share where my hard knocks were coming from.
Right.
I would hope that that's going to keep you guys inspired. And things like this. Now, you've connected with Miss Cat and Jedi Master here at Dallas on Air, so we're stepping you up in the world a little bit. And on the way over here, you were talking about expanding a little bit more into, you are a big pro wrestling fan. Now, I admit I fell off the wagon on that a long time ago, but one of my one of my guilty pleasures has always been like the documentaries and the shoots, things like that cover the background. But before we get into the topic I've got, what are some things about either current day wrestling or something you want to bring up? Because you did it at Mansfield as well and did a full trivia on it. What are some big moments that really have kept you watching wrestling? Why are you currently still watching the product? Take it from there.
Well, I started watching wrestling probably, I don't know, I was probably in high school, probably maybe eighth. No, not probably eighth. Well, maybe in eighth grade.
Somewhere in
probably
there.
Right around in there.
When it got really popular, I think.
When it was the Attitude Era, you had your Stone Colds, The Rock.
Yeah. You had that DX intro to get you down here anyway.
You had the, you had the DX.
The Attitude
you had,
Era. Yeah.
And you had guys like that. I always called it like a male soap opera.
Sure.
At a way, because it involved all the things that guys like: fighting, girls in scantily clad bikinis, and rock music, and all that kind of good stuff. And then you had a guy like Stone Cold Steve Austin who was shooting the bird to his boss, and
very brash,
drinking beer on the job.
Yeah,
and
doing what the common man wants to do to the boss every day. This is where they can vent it.
And I fell off a little bit. In the mid 2000s, I guess, early 2000s, I kind of fell off from it. I kept up with it just, on online, but I've recently just got back into it just because it's, well, for one, right now,
you're limited in what you can watch sports.
In the COVID era, it was the only thing that was sports related.
Yeah, other than MMA, that was the first one out of the gates.
Other than MMA, yeah. WWE kept their product going. AEW kept their product going.
Okay.
Wrestling is one of those things. I don't necessarily want to say it's one of those things. It's like not taboo, but people don't
want to admit that you're watching it, but you know very well you are.
Yeah, you
might skim through it. You may not embrace it, but you're certainly going to easily find it accessible.
And there are people that you talk about it, or you may be talking about it with someone like, you watch wrestling? I mean, my good buddy Mike.
Oh yes.
That's well, I have two Mikes. I have Mike Vorstino, and then I have Mike Phillips. Mike Phillips was one of my first
Meek Mike.
Right.
That was a pretty corny joke. But
when the two Mikes met, it was like worlds collided. Oh my gosh.
You got a triple threat going on.
Yeah, but the funny thing about it was.
That's not the police coming for either one of us. Don't worry about that. We can only do so much in the background.
Maybe me. I am in Dallas County.
No, but we make it work. We do podcasts in the closet so that we can actually have the sound effects, and where we're not disturbed by anybody. We've all gone through that. Hey, I'm throwing out there Chris Barnett. That's his studio. He's the pictures of that.
We are in Dallas County, so sirens will be heard.
Need to, Shay.
No offense, Dallas County. Love you.
There it is. Not to throw you off guard there, but what do you do?
But I had Mike Phillips who got me into wrestling. And then one night at Dirty Jobs during a trivia, I was there with Jessica and some other friends. And me and Mike got to talking, and we got to talking about wrestling. And he was like, man, you like wrestling? So, me and Mike went to Houston and went to see Royal Rumble, which was freaking amazing.
Oh, wow.
But it's cheesy at times, but it's entertaining, and people are like, "Oh, it's so fake." Obviously, it's fake. Obviously, it's fake.
It's predetermined, But still, with him, one thing led to another, and next thing you know, you're doing a trivia that was a blast, trying to hang with those guys that were really knowledgeable with it, And again, I didn't really hold my own that well, but tried to hang in there with the big voices that went up. That was still a good time. So, I have to kind of bring this up just because that's one of the things in the documentaries and the shoots that has always got my attention, is about the time that you started watching. There was this big catalyst that seemed to happen that we both believe really happened of what we've covered. And that is what's referred to famously as the Montreal Screwjob. Now, if I get this wrong, then help me out here. But what was happening is Bret the Hitman Hart, who's one of my favorites of all time, is leaving for another company. He's not going to walk away with the championship. So what's happening is what people would call a double cross. In other words, there's going to be there's people in this inner circle that know what's about to go on, but the guy doesn't, and one does, and the ref has to be pulled in to make it work. And either way, they get Shawn Michaels, as I understand this, known as also Sean Higginbotham. I think that's his real name. Either way, he's from Austin area,
right.
Texas area, and Steve Austin's from Victoria. But he puts it in Brett in his finishing maneuver, the sharpshooter, which makes it look like he might be submitting. They're calling him submit, but he never submits. He's trying to reach back and reverse it on him, but that's the bell's being called. Vince McMahon's all behind it, and Hollywood couldn't have made something better than this. Brett gets up, spits in his face, starts busting television monitors, and goes to the back. And there's words where he says, "If you don't leave by the time I get out of this shower and I get dressed, I'm going to knock you out."
Right.
And eyewitnesses says that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But what happens is he goes over to the sister plant, the opposing company, which would be WCW at that time, to a huge opening, but they didn't know what to do with him.
Right.
At that time, the World Wrestling Federation took advantage of this and turned Vince McMahon. He tried to steer into it head on and tried to say, here's what really happened, but the fans don't want to accept it. They want to go, you legitimately screwed the guy that we were supporting. And it was in Canada. It was like in his backyard. But either way, you can fill in some gaps here. But it works out very well for the WWF because that's where you start building Mr. McMahon. You start building a villain for the common man. That people want to say what they do to their boss. And Stone Cold really encapsulated that and took off it. And they broke the glass bon voyage and off they sail. While WCW has no idea what to do with this huge, beautifully colored WWF character in WCW. So that's part of the story, am I right?
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist. I mean, they didn't know, like you said, they didn't know how to drop the title. Brett went to Vince and said,
"That's right." Yeah.
Brett went to Vince and said, "Hey, WCW is going to pay me this amount of money. You're paying me this amount of money.
Huge contract. Yeah.
I'm going to WCW."
Right.
They didn't know how to drop the title.
Because he soured on dropping it to Shawn Michaels, right? It's one of those.
They didn't like each other at the time.
Right, there was hatred.
There was a lot of there's a lot of backstage stuff that they say that Shawn Michaels was a piece of garbage.
Yeah,
and he fully admits that back in the day that he was a piece of work.
He was coming on all kinds of supplements in his body that were not cleared by. And USADA would put him on the shelf for 20 years.
He was on illegal substances.
Exactly. That's why. Say what you want about USADA, but they would have got the Heartbreak Kid wholeheartedly with that. So.
But the thing about it to me that always just makes you like very it was a complete and utter screw job, and that's why they called it Montreal Screw Job.
Somebody's on the grassy knoll. It's a coup d'etat, but it's a legitimate one.
The thing about it that people like wrestling fans still don't really agree with. You have some people that say that it was a work. You have some people who say that it wasn't a work. And when you say a work, you mean it was a back. They knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it, I still don't think it was a work. You have guys like Jim Cornette. Mm-hmm. You have guys like Earl Hebner that was the referee during that match.
Right.
Who basically
got stopped on the way to the ramp, right? And was told, you either do this or you lose a job.
Well, no, like with Earl, it was, I'm doing what my boss is telling me to do.
Right.
And then I'm hauling ass and getting out of there.
Right. Even though he hates to do it to Brett and he didn't want to be anywhere around him because he
and you go back and you listen to Dark Side of the Ring.
He's still emotional about it.
He talks about it, and before the match,
right,
he told his brother, "Hey,
get my stuff
in the car because I don't know what's about to happen."
Right. Jim Cornette and him left the building about the same time.
Yeah, it was
before everything really went down.
Jim Cornette's account of it is. It was hard to beat Earl Hebner out of the building, and Earl Hebner was in the ring. Jim Cornette was backstage watching it on a monitor. Right. And it's funny you were talking about this because yesterday I was just talking about this, and I was listening to.
I knew it'd get you fired up.
One of Cornette's old podcasts about it, and he was like, he said he was standing at the monitor when everything went down, and he goes, "Well, I'm getting the hell out of here."
Yep.
And he takes off, and he says before he
didn't want to get I guess I don't mean to cut you off, but I mean, as I understand this, Jim Cornette threw out the original idea, but when they were talking about it, Vince kind of went, like he wasn't going to accept this tomfoolery. Well, but then later on, he's like, he's actually going to do it as he's watching the screen.
There's two different things that I've heard, and Jim Cornette says both of them.
Oh, okay.
One was that they wanted Shamrock to come out and
Shamrock.
It was going
MMA
to be
fighter.
It was going to be a DQ or something like that, or that they were going to have Brett drop the title to Ken Shamrock on like a Monday Night Raw or something like that.
Right.
And then Shamrock was going to fight Michaels at Survivor Series and lose.
Something that Brett would agree to, and then they say, yeah, we agree to it, but fingers are crossed behind their back, in the inner circle. That's where I go when I say it has to have been a shoot. I don't go off of Jim Cornette. I go off of Jim Ross. He actually went and did, I think it was the Sam Roberts show, where he said, there are people to this day that still believe that I'm lying when I say that I didn't know about this.
All of them say that.
Right.
Anybody that was involved with it, they get accused of lying about it because they say that it was a work.
Right.
The funny thing about it is, like you said, when it was all said and done, so Vince is at the ring. Michaels, first of all, didn't know how to put the sharpshooter on Brett.
He did it incorrectly.
He did it the wrong way. And so when he did it, Brett's take of it is he's down on his back and he's looking up and he says, "No, switch your legs." And so he tells Shawn how to do it.
Yeah,
and then
leads him by the nose.
Basically. And then when Shawn kicks him over, he's in the sharpshooter for about 30 seconds. And then that's when Vince says, "Hey, ring the bell, ring the bell." Wow. Earl throws his hands up, says, "Okay, ring the bell." Right. And then Earl shoots out of the ring.
Yeah, the owner called it first. The ref called right after. Right. It's like, this is going to happen whether you want it or not.
What a lot of people don't remember, well, some people do, after Brett spits the biggest loogie right in the face of Vince McMahon, he writes in the air WCW.
That's right. That's a hint of here's where I'm going.
But he was smart enough. He wrote it backwards because of the camera, so it came out WCW.
Exactly. I knew he wrote WCW in the air. I didn't think about how he thought of the reflection. Don't think that this guy wasn't intelligent. Guys, these are things we can anticipate on Loud and Opinionated with Russ. Am I not right? I mean,
That's true.
We could go on for days about this, about the knockout that happened behind closed doors, and then and everything that came to fruition at this point. It's just a very fun story. If you don't follow things about, wrestling, the shoots and the documentaries can actually get you interested. Yeah. If you're not, I would say we concur on that one.
Absolutely.
So, but here we are. We just got talking. That's a nice little catalyst because that was all a catalyst for the Attitude Era to truly take off. When meanwhile Brett does have a great contract, but not much happened creatively.
And he gets basically misused.
Referee for Sting versus Hogan or something like that.
And they But
they didn't know what to do.
Let's just call that the downhill slope for WCW.
Right, exactly. It's like, and you can't blame it on Brett. You have to blame it on just poor management anyway.
Absolutely.
More money going out than coming in. At the end of the day, you'll close your doors thanks to things like debt, and also viewership that are choosing this over the Monday Night Wars. But that was still a fun time for people. It's kind of hard to preserve that with what's going on now, even though they do have AEW, which you do have guys that have big podcasts in wrestling. Like Chris Jericho has a big podcast. Cornette has one. He gets involved where he wants to, when he wants to. But there's so many wrestling niches out there that you're getting involved in this now. It's really exciting. That's why we bring this up. That's a story I'm familiar with. But you can get more of this on Loud and Opinionated with Russ. There's my easy plug.
The easy plug.
My free plug from my guy for the YFB network to continue to check him out. But guys, another thing that I don't want to sound irritated, but I have to bring it up. The world pays attention to the realm of boxing. We know very well that Tyson and Jones Jr. looks like it's going to become a reality. You and I are huge mixed martial arts fans. We are literally fans with an opinion. We're not going to give you great analysis or anything. We have to go off our own. We're only as good as the information presented to us. So we do the best we can. But guys, you got a blockbuster of a fight coming up this Saturday that I know you want to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. Could we get that beautiful artwork up there for us, Miss Cat, as we get that going? But, man, that's a huge event that's coming up. This is incredible, guys.
See, I'd never be a weatherman.
Yeah, there's the drift. But and I'll tell you one thing, guys, just looking at this, there's so many stories that people are missing. It's not just that these guys are one for one. You're going to have the real trilogy. You're going to have the rubber match. Anybody that follows NCAA wrestling, this man right here, Daniel Cormier, is a very decorated NCAA wrestler. This man came 1 point away from possibly beating arguably the greatest NCAA wrestler of all time. He faced Cael Sanderson in 2001. He was only down by 1 point. Then Cael came back and, I think did a takedown, or there might have been an escape. And either way, that's just talking collegiate-style wrestling. I used to be a wrestling coach a couple of decades back, and that was maybe a few years, but it feels like decades. But Daniel Cormier is one of those, eventually one of y'all is going to pick a side. Are you going to go with the Ohio native? Are you going to go with Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight champion of the world? Both of these guys have felt each other. And, guys, Daniel was winning that fight on round 2 until Stipe really started going for the body.
I don't know if he was winning round.
Well, I don't know if he's winning. But other way, if you look at round 4, at least where you could see where he is getting gas, but he's also losing, sucking in a lot of wind. If you look at those jabs, that's even Rogan is calling that from cage side, going, "Oh man, he's feeling those punches." One shot to the liver, guys,
the body
and these
shots
guys
are killing.
Exactly, and Stipe knew that. So I don't know if Stipe can depend on that same move when they go against each other. But
I think this fight is going to be the best MMA heavyweight fight we have ever seen.
It is going to be
as
fireworks.
Fight fans, because the first fight was DC saying, "Guess what? You're in here with an NCAA championship wrestler.
Yeah,
I'm going to out wrestle you, get you down." But then he gets him in
the
the clinch,
comes
and
out.
and then he hits him with that hammer and knocks him out.
As they say, right on the button. And it's
round 2. You have a totally different approach.
Yes.
DC's coming in with a different game plan. Stipe's coming in with a different game plan. I feel like this one is going to be completely opposite of the first 2. There's no chance that it's going to be the same. Those body shots that Stipe was hitting him with were freaking hammers.
Yeah,
dude.
I have to concur, and I want to just say at this point that we can only make so many assumptions. We're not gonna know who the better man is until they actually get in the cage, dude. Because once again, so many stories from the first one to DC getting a chance to call in Brock Lesnar. He got the dollar halos flying over Brock Lesnar's head. I know, but it's a name people recognize. Though.
That was so WWE.
It really was. That's what we mean. There's a crossover here. If you're not a huge WWE fan, you're going to see a lot of that best practices that carry over into mixed martial arts quite often. Brock Lesnar getting to sit cage side and getting to push him. You push me now, go to sleep later. And the funny thing is, John Jones actually called him out first. He just wasn't in the audience at that point.
Yeah.
So, but then you have the second one, and the Stipe train comes back and absolutely plows over him.
Those body shots were so
bad. That's what I mean. It's a huge determining factor. It's a big component of how long are you going to withstand this. So good playbook being played out by Stipe at this point. But,
that's going to be a great card, period.
It really is. Just a huge build-up there. I just want y'all to realize that there are so many gems that are hidden in mixed martial arts. Like everybody knows about Jones and Tyson. Yeah, tonight we've got Derek Lewis versus Olenek. Yeah.
Derek Lewis, most people know him as my balls was hot guy.
The H-Town, well-known Houston native that's got something to say every time the mic's on him.
He may be one of the best post-fight interviews.
I can't really argue against that one. But, and also I know that you're not crazy about the guy that's on the Cormier event, but let me see if we can get a build up here. Chris Weidman is going to be facing one of the guys in the top 15. I can't even pronounce his name right. No offense to the guy, but we know who Chris Weidman is, the guy that stopped Anderson Silva.
Right.
But I bring that up
Excuse me, I got to throw up.
I know, but if we bring it up now, Derek Brunson unfortunately has a W over Anderson Silva as well. Wouldn't that be gratifying to you if somehow Weidman does go into the top 15 and Brunson goes, "Hey, I've got you"?
Isn't Weidman on like a 5-fight losing streak?
Easily something like that. I'm not trying to give credit where it's due. It's just if you want some satisfaction, I think Brunson could be one that you can tune in and go, "I look forward to this little."
And don't get me wrong. Chris Weidman is a talented guy. He just beat my guy.
Yeah. It's hard to look past.
Starting in MMA, I was an Anderson Silva guy from his first debut against Chris Lieben. And when he knocked out Chris Lieben, I was like, I like this guy.
Chris Lieben was told, circle hard, let him come to you. The dum-dum goes straight forward into him, and Anderson Silva just tears him from stem to stern. And
Anderson Silva's career was highlight reel after highlight reel.
Yes.
The front kick knockout to Vitor Belfort. Mm-hmm. The demolishing of Forrest Griffin.
Didn't he beat Rich Franklin, too?
Rich Franklin.
Yeah. Just so many.
What's his name? Oh, never mind. It doesn't matter.
Well, point being, he's got one heck of a win streak, and he's got the longest win streak in the history of the middleweight division.
But then he also has the worst and the nastiest
leg kick of all time. And this was on Weidman too, wasn't it?
It was. That's why
that's his kryptonite. I get it. It's his kryptonite, but he still identifies with that division better than anybody else. Nobody can take away what Anderson Silva has been for the middleweights, just like nobody can take away the accolades of George St. Pierre on the welterweight division. You can't overlook him. Whether you like somebody who bangs, this is a guy who just defines what a mixed martial artist is in every way. So we bring up a little bit of old news. It might be a little apples to oranges between now versus then, or maybe it's a good comparison of what we got. But, we're mentioning all these guys is that I have to bring this up now. This is for you, Justin Gilly. We just had Robert Whitaker came back. That's one of my guys. Robert Whitaker, the Reaper, is one of mine, one of my top 5 currently. And when he goes in with Darren Till, guys, that on Fight Island was literally a mirror reflection of each other. That means Darren Till understood Robert Whitaker's toolbox, but Robert Whitaker very much understood Darren Till, too. He was not going to play around with that left hand. He was not going to give any room for error on this one. But now that Whitaker is staying at the number 1, you have Jared Cormier, and that's going to be coming in for number 3. Paulo Costa is going against Izzy for the championship, whether that works out or not. Either way,
Did you see Izzy's hair now?
Oh, goodness.
First it was blonde, now it's highlighter pink.
Is he trying to imitate Sugar Sean O'Malley? Does he want to be a Sugar Show light at this point?
It is freaking highlighter pink.
We could talk about Sugar Sean O'Malley, but that would not work well with Gilly not being here with us. Ray and JG, we love you, man. But I say all this just because if you're okay,
I'm just kidding.
there it is. You're asking for it at this point, but you never know.
He's not watching. I don't care. He knows I'm kidding.
He's not. He'll go back and watch the recap and just go, man, they talked about me for 5 minutes straight. Now, okay. It's like that scene from Straight Outta Compton. He's going to come back and do a No Vaseline remix on us.
I'll say this because I hope he texts me or calls me or something. But he trips me out because he's so soft spoken in his podcast.
In his approach, it's so articulate,
and he's so hi guys, welcome to. I feel like I'm listening to Delilah on 103.7.
You're on your drive home, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, man.
No, I love Justin DeGale.
Definitely.
But
a really good mind for MMA. We'll put that out there.
And that's what I was about to say. You get him away from a microphone, and it's just you and him talking about stuff, and the dude knows MMA like the back of his hand, and he gets so excited about it.
Yeah.
And
he gives you snippets here and there, but when you actually enter his world, I can imagine Miss Casey just going, oh, brother, here we go again. Love you guys, but in the midst of that, I'm trying to bring his guy into the story here because if you got number 1 versus number 3, Whitaker versus Cormier, if you got Costa versus Izzy that are going to be matched up, Brunson just had a fight. You can't just have him come back and do what Chimaev did. He did, had an amazing fight. But if you look at the numbers, Yo Romero just took a fight with Uriah Hall. What more is there to do? We can anticipate Darren Till versus the Joker, Jack Hermanson. That is 2 crazies. That would be a wonderful matchup for anybody to watch MMA. If Jack Hermanson and Darren Till fight, guys, YFB Nation, y'all should be watching.
The middleweight division for the UFC, and we've said this multiple times in the last month, is absolutely packed with talent.
It really is.
It is insane the amount of talent that the middleweight division puts out. And really and truly, if you go back and you look, since Anderson Silva, it's always been that way. They've always had the middleweight has always been the most. To me, the middleweight has always been the most talented division.
Yeah.
But the fights that we have coming up in the middleweight is just absolutely insane. I totally whiffed on I didn't know that Uriah was fighting Uriah Hall.
Yeah, it was a recent announcement going through. I think I followed that on either Bloody Elbow or Low Kick MMA. Just again, I'm always good as the information presented to me, and I guess I'm fully anticipating on Instagram when Darren Till says, "I see you, Joker." Yeah. I'm like, okay, well maybe the talk is there. I don't know if the promoters have really put pen to paper yet.
Well, we won't be able to because he had to have knee surgery.
That's true.
So Till's out at least a year.
At least.
Because he blew his ACL out. Mm-hmm. So they're probably.
But then again, Hermanson did call out Costa, but Costa once again is tied up with Izzy. I guess we'll just have to see at the conclusion of that one.
So I hate to say that you have to take him off the.
Right. That's just the fan in me talking.
Right, But that does stink though, because like with Darren Till, that would be a classic fight.
So
right
yes,
there.
that matchup stings, and it could happen 2-3 years down the road from that. Just like when boxing fans are anticipating when Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao are going to go at it. Well, you might end up getting your piece of dessert pretty soon if Conor McGregor really does accept this match with Manny Pacquiao. But how many more times is he going to retire on social media?
Well, we have to say congratulations, Conor McGregor. He got engaged.
Yes.
He announced that on his Instagram.
Right.
Congratulations, you're engaged.
Yeah.
Is it going to be last as long as your
Casual
retirement?
viewers know who you are, so here you go.
Is it going to last as long as your retirement?
Exactly.
Because we had Dana come out and say Conor's not fighting in 2020 in the UFC.
Yeah, Conor McGregor's Proper 12 doesn't even compare to a cheers between Loud and Opinionated and YFB for Your Favorite Blockhead does. We have to make sure we get in one of those, man. Well, as we start to wrap this bad boy up, is there anything that you want to go ahead and plug at this point, Russell, about your show, about upcoming projects that you're working on? This is your moment, man. Let it rip.
Well, obviously you can check me out at Loud and Opinionated. I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. Used to be
Spreaker.
iTunes. Now they got Apple Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Spreaker as well. I have a show coming up next weekend. An episode that I'm going to be recording with Frank and Anthony from the Tap Out Show. Shout out to those guys. We're going to be doing a SummerSlam preview for the WWE pay-per-view of how weird that may be. And then after SummerSlam, I am kicking around the idea of doing a weekly review of wrestling. I know that the wrestling community is really big, and it's just a way to drive some listeners to the podcast. I know that people like listening to listening to people talk wrestling. You don't have people that like Jericho and Jim Cornette. You don't have wrestling community people that have podcasts that have
They can identify
tens
with a common
of
man
thousand
like you.
listeners,
Right, sure.
for a reason. I mean, people like listening to wrestling talk. Even though I'm not in wrestling, but I'm a fan.
Again, you can identify. You're a common man. Same thing. Neither one of us are going to step in the cage, but we will step up to a microphone.
Hey, I'll step up to no.
We're not going to put Miss Cat through that horror. It's just pointing out.
But no, yeah, check me out, Loud and Opinionated. I don't have a website, but you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on the Gram and on the Twitter. I don't have a website yet, though.
That's what come. We'll get you figured out.
I want to get a website, but
GoDaddy, we're coming for you.
right? I do have your Loud and Opinionated COVID mask.
There you go. We got some merch, people.
And then I'm working on some shirts, working on some other things. Hopefully, gonna put the pedal to the metal, as they say, and keep this thing going in high gear.
Very much. The products and the merch are going to shoot off the shelves, guys. Well, as they say in the Wonder Years, it was back before somebody else's time, and there you had it. Well, Russ, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This has really been a blast. I hope you'll come back to Dallas on Air more often.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is fun. I like this.
I tell you, we didn't fall off the edge over here in Dallas. We're still kind of seeing it. So we'll be careful as we step away from our spot. But as we end, guys, if you missed the first song by Zach Sanders' Music Galaxy, go check out his newest release, Pretty Girl, and check out Zach Sanders' Music. This will be up on YouTube. Ride with Dan USA will be available for all the links. And guys, once again, we have Loud and Opinionated. We have the wonderful set for Dallas on Air. And as you listen to this song on the way out, don't forget to always tune in every Saturday to the Your Favorite Blockhead podcast. Next Saturday, we'll be here. Same Blockhead time, same Blockhead channel.